From South Carolina State University to issues in Columbia to issues here at home, State Representative Wendell Gilliard speaks exclusively to me for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. Address the obvious, South Carolina State University.
Yes.
We've all heard the news headlines and the opinions as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have said that they felt like a storm has actually hit South Carolina State University.
Mm-hmm.
Others felt like a tornado basically hit it.
Mm-hmm.
As we sit here right now, can you describe the situation at SC State?
Well, definitely. First of all, I wouldn't describe it as such where, like you stated, a storm has hit that great institution, South Carolina State University. Because if you know the history, in the last 5 years, a lot has been going on. And, and that's good. Really, it was more good things than bad things. Yeah, okay. But as far as a storm, no. Because everybody knew the situation from SC State. They knew about 2-3 years ago that they needed more funding from the state. And I've always took the position that, given where we're at on the totem pole, given the fact that we have the only historical black institution here in the state of South Carolina, state funded, that our responsibility is to always see that that institution is on its feet. We should give them what they want. I never had a problem with that. But there was never a storm. I think what has happened recently, given the past couple of weeks, which you've seen, some action that has took place, and it has caught everybody off guard.
Wow.
And you have to understand what really took place. First of all, the State Black Caucus, we had called an emergency meeting.
Right.
And by the way, I'm the third vice chair of that wonderful caucus. The chairman called an emergency meeting. He said that he had found out that proviso was introduced.
Right.
Proviso is a stipulated condition.
Right.
That's what we call a proviso. Because a lot of people thought it was actually a bill. It was not a bill. It was a proviso.
Right.
But nevertheless, one of the state representatives took it upon himself to introduce a proviso. The first proviso had called for the institution to be shut down. And then the state would direct a new board to come in, an interim board, and let them know that our intent was to replace the president. Okay? But what the Black Caucus did, we did not ask the president to be replaced.
Okay.
Okay? It was two things on the table in that meeting. We had a no confidence vote on the table.
Right.
And we had a motion to replace it. Well, we removed the motion. We wiped the second motion off to replace it.
Okay.
Okay. And we went with the no confidence vote. Okay. That's what happened. The Black Caucus mission is always, number one, to empower. Number two, to try to get people from around the state to get more involved, to have more African Americans in elected position, But along the way, we must educate, we must motivate the people at large as to become part of government and to show them why they should be part of government. That's the mission of the Black Caucus, okay? But we did not ever go after the president's job. We thought that was wrong. And I still stand by that to this day. He had just gotten there.
Right.
I mean,
almost 2 years ago.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
If it was you or me, you would think that would be fair to somebody to say, hey, here's the ship. The ship has been set sail. You got some rough tides. You got some rough winds. And if you're willing to assume responsibility, then go for it. Well, let's give that brother or sister time. Okay. And in this case, Mr. Elsie did not have time, ample time.
And so you talk about no confidence that you guys had on the table.
Mm-hmm.
As we sit here right now, do you still have confidence in President Thomas Elsie?
Well, I think I'll let the people decide that at this juncture, because as you well know, that the proviso now, the second proviso, has left the subcommittee.
Right.
It went back to the Ways and Means, and now the Ways and Means is sending it to the House.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
And let's move from, Orangeburg to Columbia, because you've been making headline news of your own recently, because you actually sponsored a resolution in the House of Representatives to rename a portion of the Arthur Ravenel Bridge after Sweetgrass Basket Makers. And I know that you've been back to Columbia ever since. So tell me this, and I'm very curious about this. What is it like to be Wendell Gilliard after all of this has gone down?
Well, I think being a public servant, you know, when you're sworn in this position, it comes with controversy. You know, you cannot have the rain without the storm. Okay. You know, you're not going to please everybody. What had actually happened in that incident, you have to remember, we were in the midst of Black History Month, and I was doing something as to honor a craft that was brought here by our ancestors. It was something honorable. You know, we as Black people, we can do things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, when my white brothers and sisters do it, everybody give them a harumph. You know, whether it's for the veterans, like I do a lot. I look out for the veterans, but you never hear about it. You know, but nevertheless, it was Black History Month, and I saw it fit to present a resolution naming the bridge, the section of the bridge, the sweet skyway to the sweet grass basket makers. Okay, in the resolution. In the resolution, if you had read it, it did not take away the name of the Arthur Ravenel Bridge. It did not ask for that. And I think a lot of people jump to too much conclusions that they thought, oh, Wendell, you know, you slipped this past us. Well, I don't know how you slipped something past 123 some odd people, okay? You know, and when you have to include me, it's 124, because it's 124 members in the House. So my whole thing is, it was something good, it was something honorable. If I had to do it again, I would. You know, but the intent was the fact as to celebrate, commemorate a wonderful craft that was brought here by our ancestors, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was proud to have done it. You know, to be put in the position as a Black man to do it. You know, I mean, my position was fought with blood, sweat, and tears. You know, you probably couldn't do your interviews if it wasn't for the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. So it's always good to know we can reach back and try to educate our younger folks, okay, about our history and why they should value who they are.
And you know, that resolution that is actually got passed in the House of Representatives.
Yes, it did.
And actually got signed off from a couple of members of the Charleston delegation.
It sure did. True.
Yes. I'm wondering, when did you start getting the backlash?
When it went to the Senate, you know, a lot of people had a lot of negative things to say about it when it went over to the Senate. And I really think that some of those things was just disrespectful, you know. And I'll tell you, man, you know, this is the South. I always tell people, look, man, you know, anything south of the Mason-Dixon, you behind the cotton curtain. And anything is a struggle that we do as a people. But if we're doing it for the benefit of all, if it's something respectful, is it something to help the needy, to help the poor, to educate the young people, then we should be about the business as such. Okay? Far too many times you see a very few of us, but Black politicians in high places, they don't want to educate people about our past. They don't want to talk about the fact that they ought to be who they are and proud, and how they got to where they are to this date. And I think that is so wrong. And my point is, once we get everybody feeling good about their creed and their culture, then we can address issues such as racism, prejudice, that now we know still exists, not only in the state of South Carolina, but by virtue of our president, now you know throughout the whole world. Okay?
And you said this to the Post Inquiry quote, if they were to think for 1 minute that I was trying to trick 120 some odd people into doing something that's just totally unheard of. I'm wondering, as we sit here right now, what do you think those 120 or so people were thinking?
Well, I think the question begs, what were they doing? Because, see, all of them knew what they were doing. You know, save a few, you know, that decided to make a ruckus out of it. Okay? But once again, if they had read the language that was in the resolution, the wording, you know, the way it was formatted and everything, you know, then they would have understood. Okay? Yeah, you do have a resolution for the state. See, that's an honorable thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's not, you know, we as a people, we have to first feel proud of who we are. Okay, so when the knocks and the controversy comes and the rough tides, you know, you could do it with a smile. You can do it with a heart of forgiveness. I don't hold no malice to nobody in the General Assembly. Okay. Now we might have philosophical differences, and I will call them down when it's not representing the many. You know, because far too many times up there we represent the few, and that is so unjust.
And you touched on this in the last question that I asked you, but people online after that controversy basically said, hey, legislators don't read the legislation that they actually pass.
Mm-hmm.
You say.
Yes, yeah. Look, my whole thing is the ones who don't, it comes out at times. You know, when you view us on that floor,
right.
You know, you see the speaker, you know, he's hitting the gravel.
Yeah.
You know, you see people busy,
right.
you know, moving left and right. And I always tell people, once you understand the process and the method, it's the fact that we're not paying attention because we're listening.
Right.
Okay. And when the speaker calls for a vote or somebody goes what we call the wail out to the microphone, you know, they're being heard and people are paying attention. I think sometimes people just make light out of things just to say, oh, wait a minute, I voted on this, but now I understand it and I want to renege on what I did. But then when it's too late, they have to take the latter position.
And they're working backwards.
Oh, yeah, they're working backwards. So see, now it's time for the lies and the rumors. And you got to look at the person who introduced the bill or the resolution and say, oh, no, see, he did this or she did this. That's so disrespectful. Wow. But that's just political games.
Well, Senator Larry Gruens told the Post-Courier that he would basically squash this bill in his Transportation Committee. Tell me what goes to your mind when you hear that.
Southern politics. Okay. You can read the undercurrent in that. You know, because it's something, don't get me wrong, I like Larry Gruens. I think he's a good senator.
He is.
You know, but we have our philosophical differences. And even I think that he misunderstood the resolution. He knew it wasn't no harm. You know, the sweetgrass basket makers, what they're doing in Mount Pleasant, in this state of South Carolina, we all should take note and be proud of. That's all I like to do. You know, take note and be proud of my ancestors and the things that they brought to this country and the things that we're still doing as a people. And we have to be proud.
And when you were talking, I was just thinking about the, you did the same thing with Spring Street in the Dr. Martin Luther King district. Tell me, why did that particular format didn't really get articulated right?
Well, once again, you're in the South. And you're going to have some people that's going to do things and say things because they're looking at the color. Okay? As Dr. King once told us, we should never judge people by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And you know, we do have people in our society that are prejudiced. We do have people in our society who are racist. I mean, we have to understand that first. Okay? Because once you understand that, then and only then you can talk about the solution. Because if we don't acknowledge these things exist, so, you know, when time comes and we're trying to do honorable things as to educate our young people for their future, because they have to understand about their past. Right. And anytime you can do something, whether you want to change your name, to put something that reflects a great person or great people who brought these things to be, we should never cease that opportunity or that moment.
You told the Post-Courier that, quote, you simply want to honor sweetgrass basket makers for bringing their craft to this country and enriching our culture. Tell me, if this particular bill doesn't get honored in the Senate or passed in the Senate, where would you like to honor the sweetgrass basket makers?
By any means necessary, by any way possible, because they're still doing great things here in this state, especially over in Mount Pleasant. You know, we go in our museums and read about the history and read about the craft. You know, then we should amplify, you know, and exemplify the things that craft did for us as a people and did for a lot of other people. Because you got to remember now, a lot of people that's not black took that craft and became millionaires and still doing it to this day as we talk. They're making money head over heels. You see what I'm saying? So it's, you know, when we do these things as a people, you know, far too many times I see, even myself sometimes, when we look to the right and we want to help the veterans like I do, I want to help the homeless people. You know, and I work with a good team of people that do these things. We talk about employee raises from the economic aspect, trying to bring the state employees up to where they should be paid, including our law officers and our teachers and our environmental specialists. When we do things like that, nobody will acknowledge that. But then when we do something honorable, we take the time and educate our society, first thing you hear is, oh, that's all he has time to do? You see what I'm saying? You know, you could be out here talking about domestic violence, introducing legislation about that. You can, like I have many times, you know, gun violence, drugs, to stop it from coming in our state, yet along our country. Right. When I do things like that, it will peak for a second, but then it will die, and then years later, somebody will come back and do the same thing. Lo and behold, it's the law. They did it with my texting, okay? They did it with my synthetic drug bill, okay? And now they're doing it with the cannabis bill, okay? Because I was talking about this for years, introduce legislation as to help along the way, make a difference in our society. But once again, this is the South. And when you're in the minority, people will take your ideas, come back and say, you know what, I like what you did 2 years ago, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the same thing, and I'm going to get it passed. Well, as long as we educate people as to say, look, it wasn't my idea, it was these people's idea, or it was Wendell Gilliard's idea. You give credit where credit is due, okay? Not that you're not looking for, that you're looking for it, but people have to know the facts and the truth of who's brought it there. Heck, I was about what? Maybe 12 years, 13 years old when I found out that it wasn't Eli Whitney who discovered the cotton gin. And many of our ancestors, whether it was blood transfusion, the traffic lights, you know, you got to tell the truth. Tell the story. Tell the truth is what I tell people, you know.
Yeah, you touched on this just a few seconds ago, but State Representative Jim Merrill basically said to the Post-Inquirer that him and other lawmakers are really concentrating on real issues. He said, quote, the rest of us are busy working on ethics and domestic violence, which is why he, meaning you, is the only one pitting in resolutions like this. Tell me, because you just told me that you're focused on gun violence and
domestic violence, employee raises. I mean, you name it, I put it in. And I was challenging people, go get the facts. I mean, look, he knew what he was saying. He was throwing trash out there. Because if anybody knows me and the things that I've attempted to do and will continue to do, then they know I'm about the business of representing people. You know, and I think to say something like that, you have to reflect on him. Because remember now, just a week after that, you know what they did? We went up there and we started talking about how many gators to kill in one season.
That's right.
And I got up and I challenged the House. You see, so we have to watch how we slander each other publicly. And quite frankly, I could care what any representative think of me, okay? Because I went up there to get along, you understand, as to represent my constituents to the best of their interests.
Yeah.
And people will think good of you, people will think ill of you. You cannot control that. Every bill that comes along the table, you should not hold malice against the way a person is thinking. But you could call them down publicly for the moment, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about in a very respectful way.
Sure.
Because if he knew anything about me, if he'd supported when I introduced that 10% across the board for the state workers, okay, my texting bill, okay, the cannabis bill, I could go on to the health bill, the Medicaid, you know, these are things that I helped spearhead, but no man is an island. We work as a team.
Well, a lawmaker told the Chronicle, and this person was being anonymous, quote, he could put himself in a position where it might be hard for him to get anything through. Position. Tell me, with all this controversy going on, where is your position in the House besides the obvious?
Well, first you have to understand we're in the minority. Okay. And like I explained earlier, you could come up with a good idea, okay? And somebody will say, well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce this for you, since they're in the majority. Because they like the idea. In other words, I'm not going to support you now, but I'm going to go ahead and sponsor the bill myself, and the bill will pass. We have the rapport up there where we respect each other, you know. So when you hear people fling things out like that, that's trivial, okay, compared to the things that we're trying to achieve, okay. And once again, you know, in the House of Representatives, we are in the minority. We need to get back in the majority. And I've always challenged my parties. We shouldn't concentrate on replacing people that's representing the Democratic Party. We should concentrate on gaining more seats as to represent the Democratic Party. And I think that is so important. I don't think the party should always be in the minority. We let that slip away. Now we have to gain it back. And the only way we could do that is teamwork, working together. Okay?
Speaking of teamwork,
no, but I have respect on both sides.
Yeah.
You know.
Speaking of teamwork, you said you are a uniter and not a divider. There's so much obvious division going on right now in the House. How would you unite them once again?
First, you have to have dialogue. And then you have to look at the resolutions and the bills that they introduce.
Right.
And then you have to sort out whether it's going to impact the many. How it's going to impact the people. If you're looking at a person introduce a bill that pertains to education, is it going to take money away from public schools? You know, how is it going to help people advance?
Right.
You know, knowing that he or she need to be well-rounded when it comes to educating him or her. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, you don't want that pendulum to sway too far to the right, nor too far to the left, but you want to keep it centered.
Okay.
When you're trying to be fair and equal for your constituents. And I have Republicans come to me to ask me, you know, Wendell, can you help me with this? Can you support me on this? And I have to ascertain how it's going to impact my district.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you have to be conscious of the fact that, you know, we're just not up there to represent the few, but the many. And when I say the many, I'm talking about the homeless people.
Yeah.
People who are just poor, are middle class. You see what I'm saying? And I always tell people sometimes in government, you have to understand, you know, if I'm a rich Wendell Gilliard and I had everything in life, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't know what a mortgage bill looks like, a phone bill, a gas bill, okay? Never had a late notice to pay a bill or to pay a debt. I really have to ask myself, am I in a position to represent?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes what I see on some people's faces and their attitudes, no, I've got here. You know, I'm an aristocrat. I've got the hand-me-downs. I've never had it bad. Don't bring these bills talking about no teachers' pay increase. I don't want to hear no bills talking about unions. You know,
So
I don't want to hear no bill. They're out of touch.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying
Those people are out of touch.
You want to say that they're selfish?
They're selfish.
Okay. Okay.
You see, and that's what we call the gospel truth. They're not in a position to represent, because and quite frankly, they become quite dangerous. You see what I'm saying? Anytime in public service, when you haven't earned your way, okay, and you know, you're just a lost cause, because you're not going to represent, and then the constituents be scratching their head and saying, well, why he or she voted against this? I don't understand this. This was going to help the masses.
Okay.
You know, we promise our constituents a quality of life. Then why would I vote against the Medicaid bill? To create jobs, to create an environment of health. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Telling my constituents that you're going to have a quality of life. The other states are doing it, we can do it too. Why would I tell them that, look, I'm not going to pay the state workers what they deserve? Because that's just not my philosophy, or that's not the party's interests.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? My thing is, brother, sometimes the party ain't always right. It's the people. It's the people who are right. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Because right now, what we have going on in Colombia, you know, nobody wants to understand that word compromise anymore. You know, the Tea Party don't want people to be seen talking with Democrats or compromising with them or anything. You know, then they go after their own people, and then they hang their laundry out to dry. You know, when their laundry is dirty, is unto themselves. They have dirty laundry too. You see what I'm saying? And I always tell people, when you're in politics, you better come in as to show people, look, I can humble myself.
Sure.
I can talk about the real issues. I can stand up for the people if they put me here to do that. I don't care what color or what creed.
Okay.
You know, I'm here to represent, and people have to understand that. So as these issues present itself, watch how we vote. I think that is so important.
Okay.
People need to engage more in government. You know, and I always challenge young people to do the same thing. Okay.
And speaking of people, as you know, Dick Elliott dropped out of the race. Henry Fishburne dropped out of the race. William Dudley Gregory's in. Leon Stavronakis is in. When are you going to be in?
Still praying about it, checking my resources. You know, I could be one of the best mayors that they ever had in the city. But I always tell people, listen, if I was to run for mayor, I would be a one-term. You give me 4 years, you know, surround myself with good people.
Okay.
There's some things I would like this city to advance on.
What's that?
It's a lot of things. Well, West Ashley can be a city unto itself. I mean, that's one of the fastest growing areas in the county. I mean, let's get real.
Yeah.
I-526.
I-526.
Well, if it's not going to displace people and do people wrong with their properties, I have to listen to the people. You see, because I am so, you talk about the expansion, I am so protective of that. Far too many times, my people have been displaced, replaced, displaced, and then we create this thing we call an exodus. You see what I'm saying? And like they say, God's not giving up land anymore. I always tell people, hold on to your land.
Most of those people are moving out to the suburbs.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, if they're going to do it, if they're going to knock on people's doors and sit down with them and ask them to sell their properties, I'm against that. Okay, now they do it publicly and collectively to come up with a plan. Okay, for the ones who want to sell and the ones who don't want to sell. They do it publicly, but this thing about people knocking on people's door, making monies, telling people to give up their properties, I'm totally against that.
Let's talk about Sergeant Jasper Arms really quickly. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
Sergeant Jasper Arms?
I mean, apartments.
Well, now you got to enlighten me on that now, because I got so many things.
Well, they want to actually bring in, a new development there. They're not going to tear completely bulldoze it, but they're going to tear it down.
Once again, let the people be the deciding force with that.
Okay.
I mean, they know what they need in that area. The people who live there, because they have to live with it.
Sure.
I'm more focused, and I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Because when you said Sergeant Jasper, I'm familiar with the department, but I'm more focused on the east side.
Okay.
Because I just had a mitigation meeting. They're getting ready to develop a hotel there at Meeting Hugo Street.
Right.
Well, that's right in my backyard where I was born.
Right.
And all this development you're seeing on the east side, this is what they need to do. They need is what we call a comprehensive minority participation plan.
Okay.
We have to address affordable housing.
Right.
We have to address jobs.
Right.
You see, it's things like that. We have to address the quality of life in that area. As mayor, I would have put up a suggestion pertaining to these business and these developments. Make sure you come with a minority comprehensive plan.
Sure.
You got me?
Yeah.
We have to have that participation plan, because if we don't, that means you're not listening to the people. And I'm talking about long-term residents.
Sure.
You see, so I would love to see that plan. You understand? A comprehensive minority participation plan is what they need. That's when you galvanize the community, the churches, the teachers, the preachers, the longtime residents. Everybody's collectively agreeing on something as to say, okay, if you're going to do this, then this is what we want.
Yes.
And it's in writing. That's what they need, and I've yet to have seen that.
Well, State Representative Wendell Gilliard, it's always good talking to you.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Once again, congratulations on that state resolution.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.